This is something that's going on around the country as well and still continues to be an issue. And we're having that conversation today. Now, what we are getting into this hour is that there are deaths in places of detention, and there are also unexplained deaths. And we are going to find out why and possibly the solution to that. Joining us in the studio this morning in the hot seat, Simon Malenya is a technical lead, advocacy and treaty bodies, the Independent Medical Legal Unit. Fatuma Kukyeya is a technical lead, medical rehabilitation, IMLU as well. Good morning to you both, Simon and Fatuma.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu Sana, thank you for joining us in the Situation Room this morning. We're going to get into some difficult stuff to talk about today in terms of what is going on. Hard to, but we're going to do it anyway because it's necessary for us to have the conversation. And we're not ones to shy away from that. Let's talk about it because it's happening right where we are. I want to start off today. We normally go around the African continent. We come back from a particular country. We talk about that country and their proverbs. I'd like to share the proverb with you today and would love to get your interpretation of it. Proverbs this week come out of the country of Gabon, going into West Central Africa. And it's an oil powerhouse, since we're all talking about oil, just to know that there's another country with quite a number of that, quite some of that. And oil production drives its economy and accounts for the vast majority of its export revenue. The proverb for today: a fool looks for dung where the cow never browsed. A fool looks for dung where the cow never browsed. We'll start with you, Fatuma. What do you make of that? Sorry?
A fool looks
for dung where a cow never browsed.
You know exactly that you won't find that thing. But it's the pretense you're so busy looking for it. And the chance of getting it is very minimal.
So don't waste your time.
Sorry?
So don't waste your time?
Not even wasting your time. It's like you're... a fool. You're not only a fool, but even trying to fooling others, because automatically or obviously you are looking for something which you can't find it. Not even the chance of finding it is minimal. No, you can't find it. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Simon?
Looking for the right thing in the wrong places. Yeah. So at least the most important thing is to identify, to know what you want and to know how to find it, where to find it. So look for the right thing in the right places.
Look for the right thing in the right places.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at some of these things that we're talking about this morning, which seem to be a bit worrying off the top of it, Simon.
Yes.
That there are unexplained deaths in positions of detention. It's worrying because the one big case that is still haunting our minds today, that is yet to be resolved, is that of Albert Ojwang, who died and allegedly was tortured in a police cell, which is a place of detention.
Yes.
And that he was killed. For all intents and purposes of the investigation or the allegations, is that he was killed in a place of detention.
Yes.
And that the evidence around the cell where he was allegedly kept points to the fact that he was tortured and that the death came about as a result of his torture. So, if there's a conversation being had around deaths in positions and places of detention, that sounds to me like it's something that happens with regularity and that it's a cause for concern. Is this true?
And it's alarming in Kenya. We all know that places of detention should be the safest places anyone can wish to be. And unfortunately, we have had situations where people end up, of course, losing their lives in places of detention, police stations, prisons, and other places of detention. One of the things that we know is that, for example, in 2025, we ended up with over 25 people who died in places of detention. This year alone, as we are counting, we have about 10 people who have died in places of detention, in places where security and safety must be assured. And that's a very unfortunate thing that is happening in those areas.
Okay.
And it points out to one thing. The complacency that we see with our security personnel in places of detention is alarming. People are supposed to be placed in place of detention with safety, are waiting to be processed through the judicial system.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have had situations where these cases cannot be explained, and it's alarming and it's worrying for us as an organization and as a country as well. Yes.
From your point of view, Fatima, what is the reason why people are turning up dead in these places that essentially should secure their lives?
Okay, we can say somehow it's multifactorial. Many factors plays together leading to that. Because when you look at the places of detention, there are regulations within the country and even internationally on how to manage these places. And the main focus is usually to ensure safety, because this person is now the responsibility of the state in terms of preservation of all the rights needed apart from the liberty. This includes health. And another thing also, these places of detentions also, you may find maybe the time they were constructed up to date. There are a lot of changes systematically. For instance, in terms of population growth. So there are environmental factors. There are health factors. And there are legal factors, that is in terms of policy. So when it comes to environmental factors, where we see the prisons becoming overcrowded because of time, and the structure which were initially in place cannot hold these people in a proper manner as stipulated in terms of public health. So with the overcrowding, this pose now interacts with health issue, predisposing these people to unhealthy condition, because people may end up dying in prison due to overcrowding as a result of infectious diseases, for instance, tuberculosis. Because you say the rate of spread of tuberculosis in prison is very high compared to the outside community from the prison because of that overcrowding.
Yes.
Yeah. So another thing, it comes to, maybe we can say, is it negligence, or we tend to forget ourselves in terms of the mandate we're given as security officers when we are talking about the prison officers, because it is their responsibility also to ensure that the health of this person is well catered for, as it should be catered for when this person is in the public. And that is a stipulation under some of the international instruments used to manage prisons. For instance, that is the Mandela Rule, United Nations Minimum Rule for Treatment of Prisoners. So when I understand they're doing their best, but it is the responsibility of the prisoners, the prison institution, to ensure that the health of this person is well catered for within the prison. And maybe if there is need for this person to be taken somewhere else for better services, then systems are in place that there will be secure transportation. Because when you talk of death and custody, this involves death while in detention. It can be either in pre-trial places, it can either be in prison. It can also be either death while being transported, either to the health facility or being transported from the court to the prison, from the prison to the court, as long as this person is under the management of the state officer.
And who is responsible for this person when they're moving, when they have been brought into detention, whether they're going from detention to court and back, moved to another facility? Who is actually who bears the responsibility for this person?
The state.
The state.
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we have seen is the collapse of processes, whether it is information for investigations, whether it is loss of records, whether it is poor evidence. All of these things seem to chalk up to then not being able to solve a particular matter. When somebody turns up dead, or let me just use the words correctly, when somebody is killed in police detention, for example, again, who's responsible as the first port of call for an answer? If the person who is responsible for moving this person, ensuring that they're safe, who then is responsible when they are dead?
Thanks. And it's the very, very person who is expected to secure that particular person. And as we started, you pointed out the case of Albert Ojwang in the Central Police Station. And of course, the person responsible is the officer in charge. The officer in charge has to ensure that there are measures in place to secure the safety of of the people that are under their custody. And when that does not happen, then they bear full responsibility for their inaction, for their negligence, in case that person, of course, in case the people who are under their custody, their rights are violated or those people are killed. So it's extremely important and critical that the officers who are in charge and the security personnel who are in charge take full responsibility and ensure that the people's lives and safety is well secured while under their custody.
Okay. There is the National Forensic Science Bill. What is that?
Yes. And perhaps this is something that we have been clamoring for quite a while. The government has proposed a bill which they are calling the National Science Forensics Bill of 2026. This bill, as proposed, of course, is expected to establish forensics laboratory services in the country that is supposed to aid in unearthing the unexplained deaths in terms of forensics, to support the forensic services that will ensure at least that those unexplained deaths we have those services that are rendered to Kenyans to know the cause of death of those people who die in mysterious circumstances. One of the best things that we know about this bill is that it's going to establish those services across the country. We have the National Coroner Services Act. This Coroner Services Act was supposed to establish the coroner services that will lead in investigating unexplained deaths. These laboratory services, as proposed in this bill, will be established across the country to support in coming up with evidence that will aid in judicial processes, at least to support the judiciary to be able to understand the causes of death, where we have mysterious deaths that have occurred in the country, including those deaths that will happen, of course, in the places of detention. So it's a very timely bill, and we expect the process to be to go on smoothly and perhaps faster enough within the parliamentary processes. Yes.
Is there an understanding that the bill would essentially solve the problems that, if followed, because after the bill and the debate comes to become an act, if followed, that it would yield the results towards the outcry from a lot of people? I mean, today we're still dealing with an inquiry over Albert Ojwang.
Yes.
People are claiming not to know what happened. We're still looking for evidence. I don't know. It's a 9x9 cell. I don't know how much longer you need to find out this information. But if it became an act, would it solve the problems that are the outcry for folks whose people have disappeared? And mind you, it's not just Albert Ojwang. There have been a number of people who've died in detention even after him.
Yes.
Would it solve those problems?
Definitely. And one of the things that this bill establishes is that we need to have an evidentiary process that meets the international standards. So we have had, of course, these cases coming up, and the level of evidence, the forensics analysis that we get is substandard. It's not up to the standard that's required to go through the judicial process that will meet those international standards. So this bill will establish those institutions and laboratories that will support in terms of coming up with establishing the evidence that meets international standards, that when it goes through the court process, then it will support the judicial officers to arrive at the right decisions and the correct decisions. So we essentially will be able to solve some of these cases that have been pending for so long. As you may understand, for example, that classical case that we are talking about of Albert Ojwang, so someone will tell you that this person hit their head on the ceiling or on the wall or something like that. But then, now, these laboratory services will be able to come up with the exact cause of death. That once we meet those international standards of the evidence that we require to be used in the court to establish the causes of death, then we arrive at the right decision. The court will arrive at the right decisions, and we will know the exact cause of death of any particular person that mysteriously died.
So there are no labs. Are we saying that there are no labs that would be able to carry out these forensics today in Kenya?
No, we do. We do have.
So what precludes them from using them at the moment?
I think for me, before Fatuma comes in, these labs exist, yes.
Yeah.
But they are, first of all, they are few.
Okay.
For instance, in the Western region, you'll be told that the government chemist is in Kisumu only. But this the current bill as stands out, we seeks to establish these laboratory services in all the counties and in almost everywhere, so that at least we have the accessibility is guaranteed. Again, what we have currently is that we do not have the correct equipment that meets international standards. That's what this bill seeks to establish in the country.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Fatuma?
Thank you. So, as you're saying, whether these aspects of coroner service bill will be able to solve what you're facing currently in terms of unexplained death and custody. You see, when you need to solve something, there is need for you to know the root cause. That's the only way you'll be able to solve that thing. Now, getting to know the root cause, it's now bringing intervention to address the root cause, so that to prevent that thing from reoccurring. So the coroner service is coming in to investigate unexplained death. These are deaths where getting to know the why that death occurred is usually not clear from at the beginning of the reporting of that death. So the coroner service is coming to be responsible in investigating this kind of death. And for instance, we say there are a number of deaths which fall under unexplained, or we can say that death were supposed to be reported to the coroner for them now to do investigation, to reach to a stage where now they'll be able to prevent others like those from happening. So when you say death and custody, that is one of them. But we have several. For instance, if someone dies of road traffic accident, that is something which also need to be investigated as well. For instance, if someone dies as a result of violence, even not in prison, outside prison, as a result of violence, as a result of maybe sometimes negligence, maybe from the state in terms of its mandate. For instance, government facilities, public health facilities, when there is negligence of preventing a preventable death, that is not responding to the need of the patient when that person is brought to hospital and then leading to death. That is a death which has to be investigated.
Okay.
A death where a person dies following discharge from hospital, could be 24 hours discharge from hospital, or someone who suffered an injury, then after a period of almost 1 year, that person dies. That is a death which need to be investigated. So a maternal death, someone who dies while expectant, it's unexplained because you are in a natural process and then something happens, meaning there was either some negligence somewhere, looking into why this death happened. Infants, in sudden death of infants, they need to be, that is caught. There's someone dies just in a court, a baby, an infant. It's something which need to be investigated. So the main reason is you need to know the root cause. Once you know the root cause, there is also they need to get accountability. So once the investigation is done, and that's why you say you need to report. Once such kind of death occurs, like death in custody, there is need for reporting. Because the officer in charge, the one responsible for that prison, need to report. Reporting to the coroner, that is, people responsible for investigating that death. Reporting to the bodies mandated to investigate death in such places, like the IPOA. Reporting that death to the next of kin for them to be aware. So when they come, they have to institute investigation, which will also help to reassure or to even reduce trauma to the relatives on why this death happened, for that they can have a natural process of healing, or also to know whether there was a culprit, so that proper preventive measures are put in place if there is need for prosecution. So all this process, when you bring in the coroner, we need to find out ways of bringing accountability to such kind of death, so that it acts as a preventive measure to further such cases.
Just for people's, when you're talking about the coroner now, who is this person?
A coroner is someone who is has the capacity in terms of education-wise, in relation to that field, mostly forensic, and is mandated to investigate unlawful death. Just brief description about it.
Okay, so this person goes and carries out investigations. Okay. How many of these investigations actually happen? Because the long list that you've given, a mother who dies in a natural process, that must be investigated. Somebody for whom another death has been unexplained, that must be investigated. Somebody who entered into police custody healthy, turns up dead, that must be investigated. How many of these are actually investigated? You also bring up IPOA, which, okay, is interesting. How many of them are actually investigated that can bring out some kind of result? Because then it speaks to the appetite for finding out what really happened, for you to then say justice will then be served or denied. How many of these actually, do we have statistics in terms of these cases that actually go to the coroner, are investigated, and then are given the right results?
First of all, as we speak today, we do not even have the coroner services are not functional in this country.
Okay.
What we normally have is that the normal and ordinary investigations that go through the court process, the hospitals, those forensics that happen ordinarily, that we say that most of them do not even meet the standards. Of course, these deaths, especially that the ones that happen within within the security facilities, are usually investigated. IPOA, as you have mentioned, of course, has got that mandate to investigate deaths that happen within the police custody. And they do actually investigate. And in terms of accountability, actually, once they have done the investigations and they find that there's evidence to suspect that this person died and that death was caused by security personnel, they normally forward those cases to the ODPP, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, for processing. And of course, what we have seen is that in most of the times, the evidence that is brought out, it's not up to the standard that the ODPP will want to push that process in the judicial system. But again, we have seen some kind of laxity. We have these cases, yes, and there are quite a number of them that are within the judicial process that the ODPP has forwarded them to court for processing, and they are actually ongoing. But of course, we know that in terms of these torture cases, we haven't seen a lot of these cases being prosecuted as torture cases. Actually, we don't even have any case that's being prosecuted as torture. We have seen them being prosecuted as assault, grievous harm, murder. But we would like, once we have these services provided, especially under the bill, the National Science Forensics Bill, that these cases could actually be prosecuted as they are supposed to be. If it's torture, then it has to come out as a case of torture. So what we are lacking right now are the services that could bring out the evidential threshold that could actually prosecute someone for torture and other related human rights violations.
Okay, so morgues are not left out of this in terms of where we are looking at dignity in death. There is the crime scene, but then it also moves to where these bodies are stored. We're looking at a situation where a lot of the morgues around the country are overwhelmed in terms of numbers of unclaimed bodies, many of whom are victims of unexplained deaths, whose families have no idea where they are. Right? Or that they're even there. Walk us through the current state of public mortuaries and what are the administrative and infrastructural failures that lead to bodies becoming unclaimed or buried quietly in mass graves. We still don't know what was going on in Kericho a couple of months ago. And, Shakahola is a big one.
Yeah.
But what's the process with that? I think we still have the makeshift morgue in Malindi sub-county.
We can say we can't point to a single factor. Still also it's multifactorial. When it reaches to a place whereby there is unceremonious mass grave because of what the public morgues cannot hold. When they become overcrowded, the capacity to hold the increased number of unexplained deaths, or even the normal natural death. But now you see the public morgues, one, there are few. Those attached to hospital, they have to cater for the hospital normal death, which usually happen within the normal routine. And then others being brought by police, others being brought from the community. And most of them, they are over infrastructure which were built long time ago, as we started, even when we were talking about prison. Things have changed and the morgues are still the same.
Yeah.
So it reaches a place whereby the capacity is full. A morgue, for instance, which was built for a capacity of 184, holding around 600. Obviously, you can't continue functioning because there is a number of threats coming as a result of that overcrowding, in terms of health to the practitioners inside there, even to the community outside. And then there is also another aspect of, no, you cannot bring other more. There is pressure.
Yeah.
People want to bring, but you don't have a place to put them. So there is pressure to the mortuaries. And then there is lack of revenue because the country also needs to generate revenue. When someone is in the morgue, there is money coming in every day. So if you cannot do that because you don't have capacity to put another person, to put another body because it's already full, you are pushed to do something so that you make things continue as normal. And one of it is the disposal of unclaimed. Because usually there is a period given under the public health laws, a period where a body can be kept for a certain duration that's usually range 21 to 90 days. If that body is not claimed up to that period, then because we need to continue the normal processing, normal functioning, then you are mandated to, you have the right
to bury.
To bury. As long as you get the right authorization from the public health officers, from the court, getting a court order. So we can say it's multifactorial. And then another thing is, for someone to come and take the body, there is need for the identification. And even as Simon was saying, our forensic aspects, somehow we are picking, but still low, because there is need of bringing forensic aspects to ensure proper identification of these bodies. So that you enable one to get the next of kin and come and collect. So if the identification process are not up to the standards required internationally, you making use of the fingerprinting, making use of the digital a digital identification system in terms of tagging, whereby we are still maybe using the manual tagging system. After a period of time in the restoration, you cannot be able to read whatever was written. And then another thing, the infrastructure within the mortuaries itself. That's why we're saying there are some things you are trying to investigate, but you don't reach to a level satisfactory to get someone to implicate or to prosecute, because somehow in between we don't have the adequate resources to take care of these investigations.
Okay.
So even in the mortuaries, adequate resources, refrigeration, whereby you find many public morgues, especially within the counties, they don't have a proper refrigeration system. They rely on embalming. You embalm, you also interfere with identifying that body. Then you don't have a proper refrigeration system. You also bring an aspect of decomposition.
Okay.
So once decomposition comes in, you are pulled, you are forced, or you are urged to make sure you dispose this to prevent the risk which comes with staying with decomposed body, that odor which comes. So we need to look at the resources to make sure our mortuaries are well functioning up to the standard.
And this is at a county level. This happens where national and county come into play with each other.
County, yeah.
Okay. How do you restore dignity in death?
Restoring dignity in death, my understanding is you have to honor the autonomy of this person or respect the rights of this person. Just like the way this person was alive, the way you need to take care of this body in a manner that is pleasing even to the relatives. And even you feel like whatever I'm doing to this body, that is what I would like to be done to me. Dignity whereby there is no ill treatment. And that's somehow related to the disposal in mass graves, because when you say you are burying them in mass graves, you are interfering with the dignity. Because you need to honor burying them as that person, burying them, this person as he. But when you mix them together, burying them together, the dignity is not there. And we have instruments which also emphasize on the need to ensure dignity to the dead body. For instance, we have Article 16 of the Geneva Convention. Its emphasis on prevention of ill treatment to the deceased. We also have the Turku Declaration, which also emphasizes on the need for such. That is the need to identify this body before you reach to a level of saying you have to bury them in mass graves. And this is something which has to be upheld in all mortuaries. And that is why there is that stipulation of a period of holding. And then we bring in the standard operating procedure before you go into the process of mass grave to avoid mass graves which don't have dignity. Because if they're not claimed, and it reaches a point where you have the right now to bury them because they're not claimed, then it also should be done in a way that it is dignified. In a way that in case some years to come, someone will come up and say, we need to exhume, maybe we have somehow find something like will match the person who was buried. There is a process you can do that. But when you bury them together, it's very impossible.
Right.
So there are standard operating procedure which need to be followed for these mass graves. Yeah.
And just before we go, Simon, is there a traceability factor here that is being sought after? That you should be able to then be able to say, well, it was such and such a person who delivered at this process. This person delivered at this process. This person was one who was responsible for tagging. Should there be a system whereby you're able to track and trace who was responsible across board?
Exactly.
Exactly. And perhaps, as she was mentioning, the Ministry of Health had come up with the guidelines. They're developing guidelines on the disposal of unclaimed bodies.
Yeah.
Or, and those guidelines perhaps will put in place measures that will ensure that dignity of that person or who lost their lives. So that you're not just saying that this person, of course, we do not know them. Then this is the process that we bury them in what we are calling the mass grave or whatever. So those guidelines will put in place measures that will ensure that there's dignity of this of that person who passed on, and that there are safer measures that those people who are unclaimed, as it's stated, are processed with dignity. Yeah, so those guidelines, once they are passed, they are going to come a long way in terms of supporting the processes. Yes.
So if when we look parents, spouse, I mean, the pictures emblazoned in my mind about those who are looking for their brothers, sisters, you just see from 2024, listening to this, and they're thinking, okay, my loved one has died under suspicious circumstances, right? In custody. You're likely to be overwhelmed, but your rights are important here.
Yes, true.
So if a family member suspects foul play regarding a death in custody, what is the immediate step-by-step, roadmap, and who do they call first? So what do they do to get through this?
First of all, once there is a death in place of detention or in custody, the officer in charge there is expected, first of all, to report immediately to IPOA. That's the first thing they need to do. You report immediately to IPOA for them to conduct independent investigations. Then, of course, there is that process of informing the family of the death of that particular person. Then IPOA is expected to make independent investigations as to the cause of death. This will involve, of course, forensic examinations that are to be carried out by the relevant medical personnel to unearth the cause of the death of that particular person. If there is a chance that the investigations point to the fact that there must have been a foul play or a human rights violation leading to the death of that person, then immediate steps are supposed to be taken for it to be known as to who is culpable, who is answerable to that particular thing. Of course, you'll be looking at the officers who are in charge at that particular moment, and then for them to be able to come out and explain as to what happened to that particular person. If there is a cause, of course, if there is a cause or any reason to prove that there must have been a human rights violation, then people who are concerned will have to be processed through the law as it is required. Yes.
Okay. So then, who do you call? This is is there somebody in an? Who do I go to? And I think that's a thing for a lot of people at this point. Is there a specific person you go to?
Of course, when you're saying, for example, that you'll have to call IPOA for them to be able to investigate, sometimes it's not easy to know who you're calling at IPOA. And that's why, perhaps why in institutions or organizations like Independent Medical Legal Unit, IMLU, exist, for you to be able to help. And IMLU even has a toll-free number that you can be able to call, and then you are guided on how to go about it. So this process will support the individuals outside there once they suspect there's a foul play where one of their family members passed on, that they are now guided on how to process this case, who to report to, for example, and they can also support you in terms of reporting to the nearest police station, and also support you to reach out to IPOA to be able to carry out those independent investigations. So it's very critical that, for example, an institution like IMLU supports this person through that process, supports the family as well, because they may also need other things, for instance, even psychosocial rehabilitation, for them to be able to process this case, even as the case goes through the judicial processes, and the investigations are also being done. So it's a step-by-step process that we are able to support the family members of that person who might have passed on while in the places of detention.
I want us to go back a little bit to some of the things that we discussed earlier, because we talk about what we're looking for, but we didn't look at what the gaps are currently. And so to say that, so for now, if I don't know if to call it unintended, but if an unexplained death occurs right now, who is the vanguard of the process in terms of forensics, in terms of filling, and where are the gaps right now? How does it operate today if an unexplained death occurred? Who's handling that process, and what are the gaps that we are noticing?
What we say is that as of now, of course, the person who will be handling the security personnel who will be handling that are, of course, the investigator, the DCI, that will come in handy to be able to investigate that particular death. Well, some of the gaps that we have right now is where we have the unexplained deaths that are suspected to have been caused by the very, very
people who are investigating them.
Who are investigating. And that, of course, puts some gaps that it is not easy for you to be able to be investigating yourself, for instance. And we have seen cases, for instance, where people have been shot dead by the police, especially during the protests. But then, once they are taken to the morgues, they are reported as road traffic accident victims.
Are they, for example, because this is interesting that we can have this conversation right now, because some of those things happened yesterday.
Yes.
And we even saw the pictures of would-be plainclothes police officers taking the body of the deceased, putting it in the vehicle, and then taking it off God knows where.
Yes.
In that process, what should have happened yesterday? It was not a road traffic accident. Somebody shot the man.
Yes.
What would we expect to have happened when they reach where they would have reached?
Ideally, of course, if someone has died there, then the first thing that they need to do is to report to the nearest police station. Then the police station is supposed to come there and record that incident.
Even if the person who shot him is a police officer, allegedly?
Yes. So they're supposed to record that incident. And then once they have recorded that incident, and of course, they need to take that person to the morgue. But then there must be an incident that has been reported in the police station. What is happening, especially during protests in the country, is that these people are shot dead, then they are lumped up into a particular waiting police vehicle, then they are rushed to the nearest morgue. But what is reported at the morgue is something very different. Something very different. They will record the unknown person died of a road traffic accident, and that is it.
So it's a lie.
It becomes a lie. And then the other gap that we have had is in terms of, of course, there must be a post-mortem report that is to be conducted on that particular person. The post-mortem is done by a government pathologist. So what needs to come out is the exact cause of death as recorded by the government pathologist. And of course, Fatuma will tell you that we have had incidences here where the reports that come out do not point to the actual cause of death of this particular person.
Okay, I want to know, Fatuma. What would bring on a case whereby the cause of death, in this case, somebody's got a bullet in his head, would be different from what is clearly evident?
Okay, before I go into that, I don't know what I'm about to explain will somehow respond to that. In 2024 December, the city mortuary had given a public notice that they will be burying the unclaimed bodies because they had about 600, and those who were qualified for disposal at that moment were around 208, because now you base on that period of holding the 21 to 90 days. So among the 600, they were in a process of disposing around 208. So when they gave public notice, somehow through identification, and some of them were able to be retrieved, the relatives came and took the bodies. So now they had around 109 bodies which are now unclaimed, which needed to be disposed. And you know, that was a period whereby there are concerns because a number of things had happened. The protest within 2024, the fire incidents within 2024, the reported disappearance within 2024. I know it comes where there are large number of bodies which need to be disposed within a city mortuary, which is the central of Nairobi. Is so big, but my understanding, sometimes they even receive bodies from out of Nairobi. So the human rights concern, so it reaches a point whereby they need to follow the stipulated standard, international standard. Even if you're not there yet, you are in the process of establishing that coroner service, but still there are international instruments which regulates. So it will say that they need to be investigated to know the cause and manner before they are disposed. And the standard operating procedure to be followed, such that in case next time there is need for exhumation, someone who may be claimed their kin was buried as an unclaimed, and now they have evidence somehow they can claim that is their body. There is a procedure they can do that because the standard operating procedure were well followed.
What if somebody is buried already? Somebody has been buried and somebody comes to claim after the fact. What happens there? Or what should happen?
If the procedure were followed, the tagging, the marking of the graveyard, the tagging of the bodies, the preservation of DNA sampling, it can be done. So coming to whatever Simon was saying, you get an instance where the body was recorded as accident, and yet it was a gunshot. Among those bodies which were observed, where the autopsy were done, 109 bodies to investigate the cause so that now they can be buried. We also participated in the observation process. And there were cases whereby when they were recorded, the time they were being brought into the mortuary, they were recorded as mob justice.
Okay.
But during the observation process, during the autopsy, they were found to have gunshots.
Okay.
Yeah. So it does happen.
So we see gaps, it's clear.
Yes.
But here it is that if thorough investigation is to be done, then you would find that the cause of death would be different from what had been catalogued.
Yes.
What happens in that event? If you say that somebody, was the victim of mob justice, and then it's to find out later that there's gunshot wounds from a close range, what is the next port of call?
And perhaps that's why we need a functional National Coroner's Agency, because that's what we are lacking right now. If we had that agency in place, then immediate investigations will take place to the international standard for them to be able to establish the actual cause of death and hold that particular institution or individual accountable for that violation. But unfortunately, we do not have that coroner's agency. It's not functional at the moment because the National Coroner Services Act is not implemented as we speak. And those are some of the things that we are pushing, that we have this laws implemented and functional for us to be able to reach that level. And we are seeing a situation, and perhaps it's an opportunity for us through this National Science of the National Forensic Science Laboratory or bill, that once it is implemented, if it's passed already and implemented, then we will have these services that are functional and they will give us the actual cause of death using forensic science. So then we will know that this person was shot on this particular date. What is the equipment that was used to shoot this person? Where is that equipment located? Okay, and who was assigned that equipment at that particular time? Then from there, we are able to hold that people, the persons concerned, criminally liable and accountable.
And who does that?
At that particular moment, of course, the investigative agencies led by IPOA will be able to point to that. So once we have the forensics that will tell, for example, this person died of a gunshot wound, a gunshot. The rifle that shot this person is identified, through forensics. Then once it's identified, we'll say that on 19th of May, for instance, this person was shot, but this rifle was allocated to or was assigned to so-and-so. Then that person will be held accountable. And responsible for that particular incident.
With all of these things that we talk about, one thing that's very clear that's necessary is goodwill.
Yes.
And it's political goodwill. To then ensure that some of these things are enacted. Do we see that there is enough of a serving of that currently for these things that we're saying have to be done? The bill to be passed and then made into law. All of these processes, whether it's from IPOA to get the correct funding, whether it is from, setup of proper departments within particular offices. Is there goodwill to have some of these things seen through and through?
Yes and no.
Okay.
In some instances, yes, of course, we have seen that. But in most cases, the goodwill is lacking. Perhaps one thing that you can point out now, for example, the current OCS of Central Police Station is being held in custody right now.
Yes, he's in custody.
He's in custody. The reason?
it was under his watch that Albert Ojwang died in police detention, according to them.
Not that one. I'm talking about the current one.
Oh, the current one was seen to be protecting protesters. Yes.
And actually released and quite a number of them, 64 of them.
Yes,
because according to him, there is no...
there was no justification to hold them.
There's no justification to even hold them or even charge them.
Yes.
Of course, under Article 37, these people have got a right to protest, unless if you're holding them on another account, which according to him, there was no justification to hold them. And he is the person responsible for that. And he makes that decision independently as the officer in charge of a police station. But why is he being held? Because politically, it doesn't look good that he releases people who apparently are against the government. And that is something that we have seen. So the political goodwill is what we are lacking in the country. So we may have very good laws, very good establishments, but even these institutions like what the National Forensic Science Laboratory is proposing, if we have that institution that is not well funded, it has got no enough personnel, then we might have an institution that exists on paper, but it is hollow. It is not supporting the people as it's supposed to be. So goodwill is extremely important.
And there's a lot of work that continues to be done in this area, but I mean, IMLU at the forefront of all of this, then being able to at least share the information to let us know, and then to continue fighting for some of these things, even if it's one win. It's one win, and that's great. We want to thank both of you for joining us in the studio today to go over some of these things. Simon Malenya is the technical lead advocacy and treaty bodies with IMLU, and Fatuma Kuyeya is the technical lead medical rehabilitation. IMLU, thank you both for being in the Situation Room this morning to guide this conversation on those things. Asante sana.
Asante sana. Thank you very much.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.